Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Casey Astrology. If you're new to my channel, I'm a tropical Vedic astrologer, reader of the cards of truth and human design. And as you can see from the title, today's video is going to be a little bit different because I'm going to be doing a human design reading. I'm going to be looking at the Incarnation Cross of Matty Healy from the band The 1975. Matty and the band recently released their newest album, How to Be Funny in a Foreign Language, and I was really inspired to make this video today after listening to their latest album and re-listening to some of my old favorites of theirs, and watching a few of their latest interviews as well. So the 1975, in my opinion, is a really great band, and Matty Healy seems like a fun and interesting personality to study when it comes to human design. So in this video, I'll be discussing Matty's right angle cross of penetration and what that entails. Then I'm going to be talking about each of the individual gates which make up his incarnation cross and share some experiences of how these gates have played out throughout Matty's own life experiences. So without further ado, let's get right into it. The first thing we're going to talk about is Matty Healy's Incarnation Cross. If you're unfamiliar with the Incarnation Cross and what it is in human design, its purpose is essentially to define your purpose in this lifetime here on Earth. There are 192 possible Incarnation Cross combinations in the human design system, and these are based on the astrological positions of your Sun and Earth. With that being said, the right angle cross of penetration is Matty Healy's Incarnation Cross, and that's what we're going to be focusing on today. And just to give you an idea of what I mean by the astrological positions of your Sun and Earth in human design, you can think of your sun sign in astrology, and Earth is kind of equivalent to what your rising sign would be, or your ascendant in astrology. So when you have a right angle cross in human design, this means that you have a more individualized and personal destiny in this lifetime. A destiny in which your purpose will be fulfilled by you personally, as opposed to someone who has a left angle cross, because people who have a left angle cross have more of a transpersonal life path, in comparison to a right angle path. And people with left angle incarnation crosses actually, the influence of their interactions and their relationships, their interpersonal relationships with other people, is very much required for them to fulfill their purpose. Whereas someone who has a right angle incarnation cross, such as Matty Healy, they have a lot more control over their destiny, and they have more of a very individualized life path when it comes to their journey on Earth. Now let's get into the right angle cross of penetration itself. What is this incarnation cross? Well, this means that their mission in life is to continuously break ground or break apart structures in order for seeds of truth to be planted. The people who have this incarnation cross are icebreakers who have a knack for shocking others into a new awareness of their life circumstances and opening up the possibility for them to make substantial adjustments in their lives. But people who have this incarnation cross actually need to be careful with their words, because others will not always appreciate their shared insights or agree with their perceptions or hot takes on their personal lives. And what I mean by that is people with the right angle cross of penetration can come across as very opinionated, and because of this gate of shock that's part of their incarnation cross, the gate 51, which I'm going to talk a lot more about, this gate kind of gives them this gall to really shock people with their words and kind of just say what they're thinking without a filter. And, it doesn't always come across positively for the person on the receiving end of that. But anyone who has the right angle cross of penetration, such as Matty Healy, they have the potential to make repeated breakthroughs in one particular area of specialization, which is what Matty has done in the music industry with an ever-growing catalog of music with his band, of course, the 1975. Some other well-known people with this Incarnation Cross include Nikola Tesla, Jackie Chan, Pharrell Williams, and Bette Davis. I think the fact that Matty is in a rock band and has an outlet for his more controversial opinions through his song lyrics is something that really has helped him immensely with bearing the burden of criticism or backlash that this right angle cross of penetration can potentially face, because again, they do have a tendency to penetrate people with their words and their perceptions of other people's realities. And the 1975 and Matty in particular do have a reputation for making very socially conscious music. A lot of his songs have lyrics that really penetrate and push listeners to not only enjoy the music for the rhythm and, of course, the cool instruments, but also to be prompted towards social causes and current controversial topics. A great example of this is the song Looking for Somebody to Love off their latest album, Being Funny in a Foreign Language. When you first listen to this song, you would easily be able to mistake it for a love song due to it has just these really exuberant instrumentals and joyful vocals delivered by Matty. However, once you actually begin to focus on the lyrics and like the lyrical content, you'll realize that the true meaning of the song is the topic of school shootings and misguided toxic masculinity. And then, of course, in addition to their socially conscious lyrics, they also have very tongue-in-cheek lyrics as well. And Matty has stated clearly that he makes a lot of his music purely for the shock value of it all, which he even admits to in the lyrics to his songs. So one of those lyrics is saying controversial things just for the hell of it. And that's a direct lyric from their song, Love It If We Made It. So this is just a brief example of what it's like to have the right angle cross of penetration, and some of the many ways that people such as Matty Healy, who has his own rock band, is able to penetrate people with his lyrics. Now that I've talked briefly about the Incarnation Cross itself, I'm going to go ahead and look at what each of the 4 individual gates, which actually make up this right angle cross of penetration, what those are capable of. So those gates are the 51, 57, and 54, 53, respectively. I'm also going to share some examples of how each of these gates have played out in Matty's life based on personal stories and anecdotes that he's shared over the years in various interviews. In looking at Matty's Incarnation Cross, I'm going to be doing things a little differently in that I'm going to begin by looking at his design gates first. And the design gates, if you're not aware, if you look at your human design chart, those are the gates or the numbers that are in the left-hand column of the chart. So we're going to be looking at the design gates for Matty because this is the design gates are the subconscious aspects of his personality that may be obscured from Matty himself, but can be clearly seen by the rest of the world. And this is true for Matty especially because he's famous. And so his actions are a lot more visible to the rest of the world. So I'm going to begin with Matty's design sun, which is the gate 54.6. So what we as the public can see of Matty that he may not necessarily recognize in himself is the energy of gate 54.6, which is his design sun. The sun in human design is the expression of the personality, purpose, power, vitality, leadership, and the ego of an individual. Gate 54 is described as ambitious interaction that utilizes social and mystic connections and is willing to take up a subordinate role to them. It is the need to be successful on the material plane and move up the social ladder. It's the pressure to earn money, make profitable deals, and in doing so, attract the attention of higher ranking people and enlist their support for one's transformation. On a mundane level as well as a mystical level, it is always about the right connections to people in positions of power. It is the archetype of the ambitious concubine who eventually becomes the empress. And the gate's potential is ambition. And then Matty has the line 6, or the 54.6. The line 6 represents the selectivity in favor of advantageous relationships. So what all of this means is that basically Matty will subconsciously have the habit of only entering into relationships if the other person is beneficial to kind of raising his social status in some way, or if they're able to support him in a material way, in a tangible manner, as he goes after his ambitions and fulfilling his aspirations. Often this will translate as him dating other musicians or people within the broader entertainment industry. And to the outside world, the dating habits of someone with a hanging gate 54.6, like Matty, will look like a person who's kind of managed to marry up, or is in a relationship with someone who is considered out of their league, because the goal of the line 54.6 is to get involved in relationships which meet the criteria of their need to be successful on the material plane and move up the social ladder. So when the gate 54.6 is used to its highest ability, or when it's within its exaltation, then it can afford Matty with the selectivity to recognize which relationships could be useful to his own ambitions and those of his community as well, or his bandmates. Meaning, only advantageous relationships are considered when he is looking to enter into romantic relationships or even social relationships, such as the friends he makes and the people that he has around him in his inner circles. Those are going to be people that he knows will help him to advance in his career and kind of rise up the social ladder, if you will, in order to reach his goals and aspirations. When this gate is used negatively or detrimentally, however, it results in the waste of energy that is put into maintaining relationships which serve neither his own ambitions nor the ambitions of his community. So that means getting involved in relationships which are not productive for his own kind of pursuits, his own ambitions, and his own aspirations. And when it comes to his own band, Matty recently stated in an interview that he's most proud of the extremely close and tight-knit bond he's managed to cultivate with his 1975 bandmates. And they've actually been with him through everything, from their very humble beginnings when they were all young teens who started a band together, through their steady rise to fame and success until now. And Matty has stated in multiple interviews that he actually, all of them got into this band in 1975. They started the band when they were all 13 years old, which is kind of crazy if you think about it, because now he's like 33 years old. So they've been together for 20 years. And this kind of really reiterates that theme of the 54.6, which is getting involved in relationships which are conducive to reaching his ambitions. So, the relationship, this long-standing relationship that he's been able to cultivate with his bandmates, that's directly due to the fact that they have a common goal and ambition that they're working towards with their music. And so, yeah, Matty has stated in multiple interviews that the relationship he has with his bandmates is completely genuine. And this is what he had to say about his bandmates in a recent interview. We've become not necessarily codependent, but we've become just like symbiotic. We're very much four parts of one thing. That's why we still hang out. It's not fake. We're best mates, and we don't get together to do the 1975. There's nothing else like that in my life. I don't have anything else like that in my life. And then he kind of got emotional there when he said that last part. So these sentiments, again, are very much in line with the way that the Gate 54 operates, and especially the line 54.6. And when you have a hanging Gate 54, just like Matty does in his chart, energetically you're automatically drawn to its opposite polarity, which is the Gate 32. And the Gate 32 represents the awareness of survival through continuity within the community. So where the Gate 54 is ambition itself, driven by having to start from the bottom, Gate 32 is the gate that knows how to facilitate the apprenticeship and change required in order to achieve your ambitions with some continuity, which is exactly what Matty was able to do with the long-standing success of his band in 1975. So I'm thinking that at least one other member of his band has the Gate 32 in their charts, just because of this really great longevity that they've been able to achieve as a band together. There has to be that element of the Gate 32 in there somewhere. And basically, having the 54.6 as Matty's design sun, he probably subconsciously knows, or just on a primal level, that his long-term survival and lasting success really does depend on his relationships with his bandmates, and what he is tangibly able to build together with them. And so that's probably also how he will approach his romantic relationships and his friendships as well. Only entering into those relationships which are the most beneficial to him and his goals. Next, I'm going to be talking about Matty's design Earth, which is the Gate 53.6. In human design, the Earth is equivalent to a person's ascendant or rising sign in astrology. It represents a person's physical body and the part of themselves which they use to ground themselves tangibly into their physical environments. You can even say it's the environment which one creates for themselves, because the design gates are also known as the body line because it symbolizes the physical body. And these numbers correspond to the position of each planet 88 days prior to the moment of your birth time. That's what the design gates represent. So the Gate 53 is the gate of new beginnings or readiness. It's the energy of starting out and taking that first step. The willingness to start new developments and advance them steadily and patiently. It is the pressure of the starter energy to begin a new cycle without knowing exactly where it will lead. Those with the Gate 53 are notorious for being serial starters. There's a very entrepreneurial flavor to the Gate 53. And the line 6, which is part of Matty's design Earth 53.6, the line 6 specifically is defined as step by step, the cyclical nature of the way to success. In exaltation, it's the energy to find support for an initiative, as the successes of the past serve as a reference. In detriment, it's keeping an initiative secret, as one does not trust in others to support a new beginning. So when you have the Gate 53 as part of your Incarnation Cross in human design, as Matty Healy does, there will be times in your life where you feel great internal pressure to begin something brand new. And that feeling will kind of nag you until you satiate it, because the alternative to not being open to new experiences and trying something different is of kind of really unbearable possibility of becoming bored and stagnant. And so the Gate 53 is actually part of the root center in human design. And any gate that you have coming out of the root center that you have defined is a gate that has the potential to cause you to go into depression, because it's sort of this pressure center that's constantly pushing on you to do that thing. And so when it's the Gate 53, in this case with Matty, it's this constant pressure to want to begin something brand new, or to start a new project, begin a new job, things such as that nature. And so when you're not doing that, it can kind of, if you ignore the feeling for too long to begin something new, to begin a new project, to begin a new hobby, a new thing, a new job, whatever, that feeling can cause you to get depressed. And I know from experience, because I also have this gate in my Incarnation Cross. And yeah, it can be a kind of tricky energy to have. Basically makes you very antsy and want to start new projects all the time. Because if you don't, there's that kind of pressure of boredom and feeling like you're just being stagnant in your life. And yeah, this is probably why Matty has such a large body of work when it comes to his music and his creative projects, because he's just constantly has this pressure to start new projects and create new things, and once something's done, on to the next thing. Now, the great thing about that is that in Matty's human design, he actually has the full channel of maturation, which is the 5342, which means that he has the stamina and the natural drive to follow through with his projects, activities, and even partnerships to completion, from the beginning through the middle to the end. The channel of maturation is described officially as the willingness and energy for growth based on cyclical development or evolution. Cyclic developments which continuously evolve through the spiral of development is the nature of this channel. Now, if Matty only had the Gate 53 in his design and not the 42, he would have the energy of new beginnings, which is the Gate 53, but he wouldn't necessarily actually follow through or complete the projects that he began, because the Gate 53 is just the gate of new beginnings. There's no urgency or onus to actually complete the beginnings that you've began. There's no follow through, really. It's just starting new things. And the Gate 53.6 is largely the catalyst behind what makes Matty such a great artist and musician, because he has this insatiable energy as a generator to constantly be focused on making music, writing songs, performing, creating music videos, improving his live shows, etc. And in a recent interview, actually, Matty stated that he and his band are constantly writing music, and that every 2 years they habitually have put out an album, because it's just a very cyclic process for them, and it's kind of just like scratching an itch. And so out of that energy has come this very long and great music career and progression as part of the band, the 1975. And to date, they've released 5 studio albums, a live album, 5 extended plays, 35 music videos, and 34 singles. Just to give you an idea of the productivity that they've been able to achieve as a band. Here are a few quotes from Matty from a recent interview which really speak to his Design Earth Gate 53.6. And keep in mind that the Design Earth in human design is the environment that you're creating for yourself. So this is a direct quote. Don't copy other bands. Nothing changes culture that isn't new. Nothing. Young people are always at the forefront of cultural change. There's always been a sort of economy for that to happen. And this was a quote from Matty in a recent interview. Another quote, if I wasn't in a scene, not that I'm calling myself a genius, but I'm saying scenius is required for anybody to rise to the top. Then we have the conscious sun. The conscious planets in human design represent aspects of our personality which are fixed in nature. These are the parts of our personality which we are aware of and can identify within ourselves. And the sun itself is our power that we're born with, our ego needs, as well as our leadership qualities. In Matty's body graph, he has the gate 51.4 as his conscious sun. The I Ching describes this hexagram as the gate of arousing. The gate 51 is said to be physically connected to the gallbladder. This part of ourselves has a reputation for being shocking or full of gall, meaning that if you have this gate turned on like Matty does, you have a level of audacity and shock factor, which I talked about earlier, that goes beyond plain tongue-in-cheek behavior. And in knowing this attribute about himself, Matty has been able to use this quality to arouse or spur other people into action using just his words. Obviously, this is one of Matty's greatest talents as a singer and songwriter, and he has truly been able to use the shocks he's experienced with the 1975 and through his personal battle with drugs and heroin addiction as well to transform himself into a better, more socially conscious contemporary artist. 51.4 specifically, when it's used at its best or in its exaltation, is the gate and the line of improvisation through limitations, where there is a pure inventiveness and sometimes genius to find some opportunity even in the midst of the most devastating shocks. At its worst, in detriment, it's a reasoned make-do mentality that is rather ineffectual in times of severe shock. The superficial ego that lacks the resources and depth to answer challenges. That's kind of how that energy comes across when it's in its detriment, or when it's not used to its full capabilities. So an example of a time in Matty's life where he had to put the energy of the Gate 51 into practice is when he needed to convince the parents of 2 of his bandmates to allow them to move to Manchester for university just so that the band could still stay together, playing gigs there while doing odd jobs and going to school at the same time. He really had to tap into the power of the Gate 51.4's persuasion in the situation just to keep his band's future alive, because at that point they had been together since the age of 13 as a band, and of course they were all nearing their 20s, so in all that time they still hadn't had any success. So it had come to a point where some of the parents were trying to put a stop to their plans in order to have their kids regroup and just focus on getting an education to pursue real jobs rather than continuing to put energy into this music thing that really wasn't working out in a realistic way for them, at the time at least. So Matty was really able to tap into the genius of his sun gate to find an opportunity to improvise by persuading the parents to let their kids stay with the band as long as they did attend university at the same time. Another instance in which he had to improvise through limitations is when Matty and the band realized that no one would sign them unless they started their own record label, essentially. So they had to do just that. So when a shocking roadblock was placed in the way of their ambitions, Matty and the band took that shock and kind of used it as an opportunity to begin a new enterprise, which, by the way, also very much taps into the energy of his unconscious earth in the gate 53.6 as well, which again is the gate that has to do with, it's all about new beginnings. And being willing to start new beginnings or new developments and advance them steadily and patiently over time. One final example of Matty's Gate 51.4 in action is the epiphany that he had and the kind of awakening that he experienced when he entered rehab for his heroin addiction. Here's what he had to say about that experience. The thing that I learned is that when you get to rehab, often you meet a selection of people who have lost everything, and losing everything has elicited this desire to change their life. Now, when I got to rehab, I realized I'd not lost anything. I'd nearly lost the respect of everybody I loved, but I hadn't. Hadn't lost my career, hadn't lost my possessions, hadn't lost my money. I was just walking a very, very thin line. I think that I was lucky enough in my condition, in the way that I am as a person, to recognize that what needed to be done needed to be done. So it was really through Matty's sun in the gate 51, this gate of shock, that he was able to tap into this innate ability to respond to the disorder and the shock that was going on around him due to his actions. And this shock of him having to enter rehab for his heroin addiction. And through the recognition and adaptation to the personal changes that he needed to make in order to survive. So he had to really respond to the disorder and shock of those events through recognition and adaptation. So he had the wherewithal, the courage, the strength of character to know that he had reached his limitations with his drug use, and therefore he used that opportunity presented to him of going to rehab to get clean and then continue on with his desired life path as a musician. And he kind of had this newfound spiritual awakening as a result of that experience. And so it was in this way that Matty was able to respond to the disorder of that event in his life and the shock of it all, really just through recognition and adaptation on his part. The final gate in Matty's right angle cross of penetration is the gate 57.4, which is his conscious earth. In human design, the earth gate is equivalent to a person's ascendant or rising sign in astrology. It represents a person's physical body and the part of themselves which they use to tangibly ground themselves into their physical environments. Here's what the gate 57.4 represents. Intuition in the moment. An instant knowing what to do, how to act, what step to take. The possibility to reach to penetrating clarity by way of intuitive alertness. The line 4, as part of the gate 57.4, is sensitiveness. To master relationships with sensitivity. In exaltation, it's the ability to master relationships on the basis of intuitive clarity and sensitivity, thus increasing productivity. This is when it's used to its highest capability. In detriment, it's the dictator who uses their intuitive clarity to strengthen their own authority. That's when the energy is used negatively. A great example of the energy of the Gate 57.4 in Matty's life is his firm opposition to artists doing paid meet and greets with fans. He has called it an abomination and has publicly disparaged artists who do such things to their fans. Addressing them directly in an interview, he stated, "If you want to do paid meet and greets, do them. I stand by it, but you take the money. If you're an artist and you do paid meet and greets, do it cash and you take the money off the fan. I challenge you to do that. Don't put it on the label. Don't put it on the company. Don't put the responsibility on someone else. It's fucking gross." I believe that this is a great example of the sensitivity and intuitive clarity of Matty's Gate 57.4. It's really given him an innate ability to build trust and loyalty among his young fan base by looking out for them in that way. And really not wanting to rip them off when it comes to ticket sales, and, having a chance to meet the band. The 1975 is also known for having very reasonable ticket prices at their concerts as well, which is something that Matty has championed for the band. So this is an example of him using the energy of his Gate 57.4 conscious earth in a positive light rather than using it in the negative light of becoming a dictator with it. Another cool thing about the Gate 57 is that intuition is closely connected to the sense of hearing, and it's called the Gate of the Gentle, or hearing in the now, and it's actually connected to the right ear. So for Matty as a musician, he has this intuitive ability to be able to hear and participate the future of his music sonically, and he kind of has that gift of hearing in his favor. But when this gate is used negatively, the gate or the gift of hearing can actually become a handicap for someone with this gate, because they can start practicing selective hearing, because this is really a gate that's designed to not be influenced by outside sources. This gate is the awareness foundation for survival. Each of the splenic gates has an underlying fear, and here it is the fear of tomorrow. However, when a person with the Gate 57 is able to really stay focused and pay attention in the now to their hunches, the fear of tomorrow no longer exists for them. And so when it comes to songwriting, Matty really follows the principle of his Gate 57.4 down to a science, because he has this to say about songwriting. Trust your instinct. Don't over-intellectualize it. You just have to trust that your instinct is right and just do that. And so he already has this intuitive knowing of, just following his instincts and trusting that that's really what's going to lead him to success with his songwriting. So this concludes my video on Matty Healy and his right angle cross of penetration in human design. If you enjoyed the video and want to see more human design related content, you can check out my previous human design videos where I talked about Prince Harry and Prince William's astrology, cards of truth, and human design. And you can find the link for that video here. If you're looking for more cards of truth content, check out my ongoing birth card short series where I gave a quick little overview of each of the cards of truth birth cards. And if you don't know what the cards of truth are and you need to find out what your birth card is, you can visit my website to find that out as well. And the link for that will be in the description box below. I also have a playlist of other cards of truth celebrity readings, which I again will leave the link for in the description box below. And let me know in the comments which artist or celebrity you'd like me to do a reading for next, whether that's a human design reading or the cards of truth or astrology. I'd love to hear from you. And of course, if you're looking for a reading for yourself, I do offer readings which combine the cards of truth, astrology, and human design, much like I do on my channel. So if you're interested in getting a reading with me personally, you can go to the description box where I'll leave a link to book a reading with me. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.